What? Mm. What's up, y'all? I am the Kid Ghost, and you are now live and lit on the New Wave podcast. And to my right, we have the OG.
D Silk Sims.
And to my left, we have the wonderful
Mariah.
And this might be our first time, really getting on the wave or making sure y'all catch the wave. But we just here to talk. We here to catch a vibe and have an open discussion. And today, I felt like it's Black History Month. It's important to speak on some topics that's a little bit more in tune with the culture and what we have going on. So I just wanted to know, how do y'all feel about code switching?
What is
Do y'all
code
know what
switching?
code switching is? Okay, cool.
That's a good question. What is code switching?
So code switching is, to me, the art of being able to walk into any room and kind of change how you speak or how you present yourself to the group of people that you're around. So, for example, if I'm in a room full of multimillionaire businessmen, white people, how do I speak? How do I carry myself? How do I what's the code for that room? And at the same time, if it was the same room, but it was a bunch of brothers like myself, how do I navigate that space? Do I talk the same way to the white businessmen in that space? Do I talk to the black man the same way? Or is there a code switch that I kind of have to make to be able to fit into that space? So my question first and foremost is, why do people like myself or yourself feel a need, if any, to ever, make that transition when you step into these different spaces?
Maybe it's a comfortability thing. Like, for instance, maybe you could walk into a crowd of people that are, multimillionaires, for example, and they're all talking, and you just walk in and you're not a multimillionaire. They could kind of look at you a certain way and it makes you feel awkward. So your initial reaction is to switch code and be like, okay, talk when spoken to, keep yourself collected, limit the things you would say with your friends,
Mm-hmm.
like, limit certain key focals that could offend somebody who is a multimillionaire.
So do you think that comfort that you spoke of at the beginning of that statement, do you think that comfort is for my benefit or for theirs?
Honestly, I feel like it could go both ways. I mean, for me, I'm uncomfortable in all situations.
For sure.
So, for instance, I'll walk into work and all eyes will be on me and I'll feel like everybody was just talking about me when in reality,
You just walk through the
I just
door.
walked through the door versus, me not saying anything, it could make them feel weird because, they could feel the same way, like, oh, why'd she look at me that way?
For sure.
But I mean, for me, I feel like it would be for both parties.
Why?
Well, that
How
sounds
you feel?
very similar to assimilating.
For sure.
When you get into an environment, you feel the environment out. And if you're not comfortable with the people that are around you, you may draw back or you may feel like there's a need to be proper in your speech. But an individual like me, I'm everywhere. I'm with all groups. I can be with rich, poor, black, white, it doesn't matter. I be me. So I'm going to talk the way I talk. And if it comes across, because we get labeled at times as, because you're black, you got to have slang, or because, it's like, look, I just talk. I
Mhm.
like to be clear. I want to be able to make sure that you understand what I'm saying.
For sure.
So if I'm talking slang and you don't get it, maybe I will assimilate to make sure you understand what I'm talking about, because communication is key. And I want you to know what I'm saying. And when you walk away, you're not confused. So
For sure. I feel like the word assimilate is a perfect um synonym for code switching. I guess that's probably the word that you would use if you was in that room, with educators. You wouldn't say, well, sometimes I feel the need to code switch. You would say, I feel the need to assimilate. And I feel like that's one of those things that um to a certain event to being a person of color. I don't think it's a thing that people who aren't necessarily think about. Versus me myself, I know when I walk into certain spaces, or I don't want to say I know. I feel that when I walk into certain spaces, because I've been in rooms with literal billionaires, And in those spaces, I couldn't talk in my head. Like I couldn't talk how I talk when I'm with the homies unless I was in a position where you don't have anything to offer me.
And honestly, to add on to that, because I felt that specific statement was a little bit relatable, like for instance, my husband, he is from money, but doesn't mean he has the money, his parents, his family. So like every year we do a family trip gathering to whether it's New Hampshire, which is where he spent most of his summers. When I'm around his family, I'm a whole different Mariah. Like I barely talk. I speak when spoken to. I don't cuss as much. I don't, goof off like I do with like people here, because they're from money, and a lot of things that I do,
Mhm.
it would be looked down upon, if you will. Like for instance, how you and I were just talking about this, how I raise my kid and how my sister-in-law raises her kid. It's all about, how an insinuation, like they have her kid in daycare, but why don't I have mine?
It could be a generational thing too.
Exactly.
Because when you said code, I didn't know what that meant, but
Mhm.
I mean, I got y'all about 20 years. So it's like when everybody said, let's be litty, turn up. Well, back in my day, we used to be cool. What's wrong with being cool? I mean, you can be lit or you can turn up, but being cool is the same thing. And because the generations are a little different, it's like, okay, well, you can be lit if you want to, but I'd rather just be cool. But it's not a difference. It's the same thing. We're just using it as culture
For sure.
difference.
And I think also to another degree, it gets different when certain spaces are spaces that you never expected to be in or you've never really had to truthfully navigate. So when you step into those spaces, you have um, a presumption of how it's supposed to go. Because
Story of
what
my
ended
life.
up happening with me is when I was in that room with those billionaires and we were having conversations, the conversations that we had were very free flowing, very open, very calm, very cool, enjoyable. We're laughing, we're joking. And we were joking about things that I never thought billionaires would be into, you know. And I was sitting at a dinner table and the guy next to me, he was like this 73, 74-year-old billionaire. You know what I'm saying? He made his money years and years and years ago.
Gotcha.
He became a billionaire in his 30s. So he's 40 years into being a billionaire. And we're laughing and joking and kicking it and having a wonderful time. He gave me a business opportunity over the course of the conversation. All kinds of things happened. And in that specific situation, I was being myself. But then there were other times where it was very different, where as soon as I stepped into the room, I already knew or felt that it was a level of energy that I had to bring into that space as a representative of everyone else that looked like me.
Kind of
That
like an
might step through that
unwanted
door.
vibe.
For sure. But also at the same time, it was inquisitive. So it was like, why is he here? Because everyone else looks the same.
Mhm.
Everyone else is clearly from money. It's older women with pearls and,
Mhm.
you know, scarves and fur coats.
Well, the secret to becoming a billionaire. Billionaires become billionaires because they don't spend their money.
Right.
So if you're gonna save your money and you hoard it, eventually it'll gather and you become a billionaire. So it's great that you got the money. Hey, I'm glad you got it. Whatever you did, that's fine.
For sure.
But if you're not spending it, you're keeping it, and then okay, you're gonna keep hoarding it up. So I don't feel like I need to be different because you saved all your money. Hey, you earned it. Good job. But
Right.
I'm spending my money. That's probably why I'm not a billionaire now. So,
Well, and honestly, like that's another thing to add on to his statement. Like I I I'm happy for people that like have a lot of money, but at the same time, those who have a lot of money and then look at you like, well, why do you live paycheck to paycheck? Okay, well, I have this, this, and this, and you from your generation. And I really feel like it's about generations. Like back in the day, when I was like 2, I was living in my mom's car with my mom because like, things got too unaffordable. We lived off hamburger meat, rice, potatoes, like basic stuff that you could get cheap. But now you go to the store and it's like, okay, well, I'm happy that you guys have all that money, but if you're not sharing, shush. I don't
So
think it's something you should brag about. I mean, kudos to you, but not everybody has that.
So do you feel like to that degree or to that statement, do you feel like something like having a skill like being able to navigate any room in any way, right? Because I can't necessarily walk into certain rooms and be rapper me or TV show host me. I can't be that person. Sometimes I have to be the businessman. And that's a totally different energy. You know, I'm not gonna wear the same glasses in a business meeting. I'm not gonna wear a bomber jacket. I'm gonna come in suit and tie and that type of stuff. And being able to assimilate to these different spaces, do you feel like that's an essential that everyone needs to have, or do you feel like that's something that you only need to have if you're not the person in power?
Well, it's one of those things where if you're confident in what you are and you can actually see what's happening, if you know you're going to a business meeting, okay, you want to put your best foot forward. So if you're on an adventure where maybe it's where we're at refreshment, where we're socializing, then you come differently. So it just depends on what your objective is when you walk in. And if you walk in and it happens to be where, okay, everybody's congregating, we're all realizing we're talking, okay, well, then be comfortable. If you're comfortable and you're confident in you, you can have a barrel of suspenders on, and no matter how much money they make, if you feel good about it, if you believe in it, then you do it. Anything in life for you to do, you got to want to do it first. And if you want to be there, you're going to be there the best way you can.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're just there, if somebody pushed you in, you don't want to be there, it's going to come across whether you got a tuxedo on or whether you got on t-shirt and jeans. So.
For sure. How do you feel about that?
About what? I was just kind of just listening.
Do you feel like it's a necessary thing to be able to assimilate into specific situations, to be able to move forward or further in whether it be career, whether it be in anything along those lines? Do you feel like it's a necessary evil to be able to chameleon your way through certain rooms, or do you always be yourself?
I'm a little biased because I firmly stand by, be yourself. But, there's always that crowd that if you do be yourself, you're still judged either way. So, growing up for me, the minute I walk into work, anything that's bothering me, I put it at that door because I used to carry stuff to work with me and it would change my whole demeanor. Yes, I would literally walk in and just be like, screw this, screw that. I'm over it, kind of Manhattan. But then I became a manager. And now that I'm a manager, you have to present yourself because then how do you expect your other employees? So I do firmly believe that it's a multi thing. Like if you have that opportunity to be able to do that, great. If not, I mean, it is what it is.
For sure. I feel like for me personally, I've always been a foot in the door kind of person. So as long as I could get my foot in the door, once that happened, I was good. That's when I could be myself. But I had to get through that door first. So sometimes I did feel like in moments I may have been selling out, or I may have been untrue to my heart of hearts or my real character. But in those moments, it was only to get my foot in the door. Because once I got in that door, then I could be myself, uninhibited, unchained. And then once that happened, like I never felt more comfortable than becoming a CEO. Once I was a CEO, it didn't matter. It didn't matter whether I was a CEO of $1 billion company or we never made $1,000 in a quarter. I never cared because at that moment, I felt like I have just as much credentials as you do. Outside, I don't have the finances for sure, but I had a vision, I saw it through, and I'm building on it. And at some point, that billionaire was in the same position I was. And I think that's why we ended, like I got his number and everything. And this is like a billionaire. We talking like his friends are important people. Like he been on Oprah, like Barack Obama, the homie type joint. Like he deep into it. And we became homies just off the strength of like in those conversations, I was able to be authentic, but after I got my foot in the door. And I definitely had to fake the hell out the funk to get in that door.
Well, you know what they say, fake it till you make it.
You know what I'm saying? But and it wasn't me faking who I was. I was still authentic, but it was like, it's like the difference between Taco Bell and like going to like La Parita or something like that. You know what I'm saying?
Gotcha.
It's still Mexican food. Like it's still a taco. It's still rice is still,
If it's a duck, if
but
it quacks like a duck, it's a duck.
yeah, but if it's different kinds of ducks, you know what I'm saying? And that's really what it was. It was like in these different spaces, I've had to be different versions of myself. And I think that's what code switching is at its basics, is just how many different versions of yourself do you have readily available to turn into? I feel like it's different masks or different costumes, but it's the same person. Like Batman and Bruce Wayne is the same person, but Bruce Wayne is a billionaire, Batman is a superhero. It's the same guy under the suit. So the same person that jump off the building and want to beat somebody up because you robbing somebody is also the same person that takes 10 million of his dollars and opens up an orphanage. So it's that walking that line of like, which person do I have to be in certain spaces, but also understanding that that's still authentic to yourself. It's not like I'm walking in here and I'm like, yeah, you know, I'm a Republican and I want this and I want that. Is none of that. If you ask me my political beliefs, I'm going to tell them to you. If you ask me my religious beliefs, I'm going to tell them to you. If you ask me my personal preference on this or that or music or whatever, I'm still going to tell you the same thing I would have told you, but I'm just going to deliver it in a way that you can receive it. And something that I'm a firm believer in is if you don't understand me, I'm never going to repeat myself. So
Communication.
Exactly. And I feel like being able to effectively communicate to the person that you have to communicate to is the skill that code switching truthfully is. And it doesn't make me feel a way or not a way to have to be able to effectively communicate with people. Because if I'm in a room, I can't say, you feel me, to certain people. I can't say, man, you tripping. I got to be like, oh, man, that's a crazy statement, Bob.
You understand what I'm saying? I mean,
you know?
Yeah, well, sometimes you have to play the field, you know, and depending on circumstances, I mean, there's a time and a place for everything,
Mhm.
you know, and when you're in those situations, I mean, myself personally, I've had an opportunity to interview billionaires, and it's, you know, it's me trying to speak how they're comfortable, which they understand, because I don't want them to ever feel like they were misquoted or they didn't get what they wanted to get across.
Right, meeting you where you at.
Exactly. As long as we're able to communicate and you know what I'm saying, if you need me to repeat something, if I need to reform it, maybe I will. But overall, it's about the confidence level, because I'm going to stand and look at you eye to eye, because no matter how you do it, we both put our pants on one leg at a time.
Right.
We both sit on the toilet. You know, we both do things that human beings do. So I'm going to deal with you. And whatever it takes to get this job done, whatever the goal is for this, I'm going to achieve it. And hopefully at the end, you respect me because I looked you in the eye, I shook your hand, and we were able to communicate whatever we needed to communicate with.
For sure. Well, it's been wonderful having this conversation with the both of y'all. Go ahead and reintroduce yourself one more time for the people that don't know.
I am radio personality Darian D. Silk Sims, the United States champion of justice, fixing America's issues one state at a time.
For sure.
And I'm TikTok influencer Mariah.
And I am the Kid Ghost, and we are out.
Oh. Well, this is awkward.
I could have swear y'all said rap.
I was saying wrap up the topic.
Oh.
Well,
Remember I
my
said
class
this way,
started.
wrap up the topic.